reduced to piles of rubble, the joy felt by thousands of Palestinian families returning home after a ceasefire deal with Israel is now turning to despair. The cold reality of uninhabitable, bombed-out homes and dire shortages of basic supplies is setting in. Fahad Abu Jahum returned with his family to Jabalia from the Al-Mawazi area in South Gaza. The destruction they found was so widespread that they had no choice but to head back south.
I am displaced from Al-Mawasi in Khan Yunis. When they announced the ceasefire, they said the displaced could return north. We missed the north. My base is in the north, and my whole life is in the north in Jabalia camp. 3 days ago, we headed north, but it was destroyed. There was no life. Nothing. It's a very difficult situation.
A lack of running water forces many to queue for hours to fill plastic containers for drinking or cleaning. And at night, residential districts laid to waste by Israeli airstrikes sink into darkness. There is little electricity or fuel to operate standby generators. Most of the 650,000 people displaced from the north had re-entered Gaza City, according to Hamas authorities. Many of those returning trekked over 12 miles along the coastal highway, often carrying all their remaining belongings after months of displacement. A Hamas official, speaking on condition of anonymity, said less fuel, cooking gas and tents were brought into Gaza than agreed in ceasefire talks. Israel strongly denies this. A spokesperson for the Israeli Defense Agency that liaises with the Palestinians said that tens of thousands of tents have entered Gaza since the ceasefire, and that gas and fuel are being delivered daily and in keeping with agreements.
Congo's M23 rebels appear to have consolidated control over a devastated Goma. It is the second time the Rwandan-backed rebels have entered eastern Congo's largest city. But last time, in 2012, they soon withdrew and were defeated the following year. This time, things are different. For one thing, the offensive comes at a time when the world's attention is elsewhere. As one Western diplomat put it, quote, "The U.S. is looking inwards. Europe is divided. The Middle East is in turmoil. Kagame seized the moment." The 3-decade conflict in Congo's east is rooted in the long fallout from the Rwandan genocide and the struggle for control of Congo's mineral resources. Rwandan President Paul Kagame's government has long denied supporting M23, but that's despite findings to the contrary in numerous UN expert reports. Nevertheless, Kagame has been able to trade on his image as a stable partner in a tumultuous region. He has spent the last decade charming the nations that could hold him accountable for transgressions in Congo. He has ingratiated himself with Britain, for example, agreeing to accept asylum seekers in Rwanda. Though the UK government has scrapped the migration deal, it says it is keen to maintain close ties. Sources say France's President Emmanuel Macron is working behind the scenes to calm the situation, and has spoken with both Kagame and Congo's President Félix Tshisekedi. But Paris is also nurturing relations with Rwanda. It is keen to repair damage from its role during the Rwandan genocide, and to bolster its influence across the continent as its authority wanes in its former West African colonies. Kagame also deployed thousands of Rwandan troops to fight an Islamist insurgency in Mozambique that threatens a major French gas project. Meanwhile, analysts said Congo's neighbors are more reluctant to get involved militarily this time. Instead, African leaders are scrambling to launch diplomatic efforts to end the fighting. Across the Atlantic, Washington urged the UN Security Council to consider unspecified measures to halt the offensive. The Rwandan president said he had agreed on the need for a ceasefire in a phone call with the U.S., but gave no indication of bowing to demands for a withdrawal from Goma.
Syria's de facto leader, Ahmed al-Sharaa, was declared president for a transitional phase on Wednesday, allowing him to further tighten his hold on power 2 months after he led a campaign that toppled Bashar al-Assad. The decisions emerged after a meeting of military commanders who took part in the offensive against Assad, a campaign which was spearheaded by Sharaa's Islamist Hayat Tahrir al-Sham group, a former al-Qaeda affiliate. According to an announcement by military command, Sharaa was empowered to form a temporary legislative council and suspend the Syrian constitution. At the meeting, Sharaa laid out his priorities.
Fill the void of power in a legal and lawful way, Second, sustain civil peace through the pursuit of justice and prevent manifestations of retaliation.
He also vowed to rebuild state institutions, including the military and police. And he promised action on the economy, agriculture, and industry. Sharaa has pledged to embark on a political transition, including a national conference, an inclusive government, and eventual elections, which he said could take up to 4 years to hold. The parliament elected under Assad last year was formally dissolved. No timeline was given for the transition period or for when a new legislative body might be picked. Qatar, which backs the new administration, issued a statement welcoming the announcements. One Syria expert told Reuters the declaration had formalized Sharaa's status as a strongman ruler and could be intended to consolidate single-party Islamist rule.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday ordered the expansion of a migrant detention facility at Guantanamo Bay.
Today, I'm also signing an executive order to instruct the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay. Most people don't even know about it. We have 30,000 beds in Guantanamo to detain the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people. Some of them are so bad we don't even trust the countries to hold them because we don't want them coming back, so we're going to send them out to Guantanamo. This will double our capacity immediately, right? And that's a tough place to get out of.
The U.S. naval base in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, already houses a migrant facility separate from the high-security U.S. prison for foreign terrorism suspects. It has been used on occasion for decades, including to hold Haitians and Cubans picked up at sea. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel called Trump's plan, quote, an act of brutality. New U.S. border czar Tom Homan said later on Wednesday that the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency would run the expanded facility. He told reporters the center would be used for the, quote, worst of the worst. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said the administration was working with Congress to determine the cost of the project. The detention facility at Guantanamo Bay was set up by George W. Bush to detain foreign militant suspects following the September 11, 2001 attacks on the United States. There are 15 detainees left in the prison. Trump's two Democratic predecessors, Barack Obama and Joe Biden, both sought, albeit unsuccessfully, to shut Guantanamo down. However, Trump has vowed to keep it open. Pro-refugee groups have called for the Guantanamo migrant facility to be closed and for Congress to investigate alleged abuses there. Multiple deaths have been reported after a passenger jet and a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter collided mid-air and crashed into the Potomac River Wednesday night near Reagan-Washington National Airport. Police said several agencies were involved in a search and rescue operation in the river. The airport said late on Wednesday that all takeoffs and landings had been halted as emergency personnel responded. The Federal Aviation Authority said PSA Airlines was operating a regional flight for American Airlines, which had departed from Wichita, Kansas. American Airlines said 60 passengers and 4 crew were on the plane. A U.S. official said 3 soldiers were aboard the helicopter. There were no confirmed reports of survivors, and CBS News said at least 18 bodies had been pulled from the water. Officials said they were still in rescue mode. Reuters White House reporter Trevor Honeycutt was at the airport.
As I'm here, I'm seeing relatives trickle in little by little through the night with no answers about what has happened to their relatives. They are just looking for information, and for the most part, they are not finding it here at the area where they are all being staged with other friends and family members who are looking for their loved ones.
In a post on social media, U.S. President Donald Trump asked why the crash wasn't averted. He called it a, quote, bad situation that looks like it should have been prevented. New Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the Pentagon was launching an immediate inquiry into the circumstances of the crash.